Hey, hey folks,
There we go.
here we are. So here's another installment of Quarkus Insights for you today. And we have Erin. I'm sure you never forgot about Erin from her last show with the micrometer. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to be there. So this time I made sure that I will be so we could talk about something that we, in our previous show, basically, we just like mentioned in like real like 2 seconds. We're like, oh yeah, and Quarkus 1.11 is going to be released, so check that out. So because this is such a big release, and Erin's super excited about it, we decided to have her here to go through all this exciting stuff that we have in Quarkus 1.11. So Erin, why don't you tell us about yourself, a few things like how you got here, what you've done, how much you just absolutely adore Quarkus and all of us.
This is last time I was on. It was right after my official Red Hat transition, right?
Yeah,
And
I
it
think
was like
so.
new shiny. I was walking on air for a while. I was super. I'm not unsuper excited, but I'm a little normaler. I was supercharged excited before. So I hate doing these. I've been on in Java forever and ever and ever, and um, actually, the interesting thing working on Quarkus now is that I get to use a fancy word. I'm one of the progenitrix, like one of the people that started Liberty when it was
Hmm.
new and shiny. And so
Which was
like
when, by the way.
to that, well, so there was the prototype before the prototype. So like Liberty was born. Now I'm not kidding. Like I foundationally, like there's a lot of that code that's mine. And that was 2005,
Oh
six,
wow.
seven in there, like a long time ago. Um, Yeah, and we have like a Liberty is 5 t-shirt from maybe like a lot of years ago, but I can remember working on the transition of Liberty from like scrappy POC it like back over into WebSphere as a product.
Hmm.
And it was right when my son was going to
Oh.
be born. So it's 3 in the morning. So I'm like, I'm gonna do all of this before I have this kid. And so I'm typing and it's 3 in the morning and he's kicking and it's 3 in the morning. And that was,
That must
unique.
have been
But
fun.
it was, but that's how I know how long ago it was. Because I know how old he is. It's easy math. So
Or
that
you
was a
know
long
how
time
old
ago.
he
But
is because you know when Liberty was done.
well, I think it would be
No,
easier
I'm
to
just kidding. I
forget
know.
if I didn't have such a unique experience tied to it. So
Right.
anyway, but like interestingly, and I'm going to pick on you a little bit for this because we said we were going to talk about Resteasy Reactive. So part of what I worked on and part of what Liberty had, or even WebSphere had, like a bazillion and 6 years ago, was a highly asynchronous HTTP stack,
Hmm.
not based on Vertex. I
Right.
wish, like, if I could go back in time and be like, can we open source this framework? Because we had it before Vertex existed, and
Hmm.
it does really good things. It's deep down. If you wanted to go look at the channel framework stuff, it's in Liberty, which is now open source. But we really should have released it as its own thing like a million years ago. So when Liberty was coming out, that was my bag. I did wholly refactoring that stack
Hmm.
because anyway, there's weird roots back there. But so I find it interesting that we're still looking at, you know, REST wasn't there then. It was all still
Hmm.
servlets, but now we have REST. Actually, it was anyway, but it was early days. And so now we have REST, and we now have rewritten the REST stack on Vertex. And how is that? Like, I remember it being super fun because you had all the throughput stuff. You had like glue pieces to put together. You had, I mean, infrastructure, like the guts and bowels of a runtime are sometimes really super fun to work on.
It's
How
fun
has
when
that?
it's done. It's not fun when you're doing it.
No, that's not true. That I do not. But maybe that's just me. But fundamentally, working on that kind of stuff is so satisfying when you get it to work because it's hard.
Yeah, when you get it to work, yeah.
Oh, come on, fess up. How was it? I
uh, well, okay, so I didn't join. I wasn't like on it initially. So what happened was Stewart started initially, because we all recognize that, like, Resteasy was basically the largest outlier in our Quarkus stack, in the fact that it was not like reactive. It was, well, no, it was not non-blocking, and it did not take into account any of the build time optimizations that Quarkus did. So we all knew that, like, yeah, this is a big outlier. And at some point, someone or some people have got to spend some real time on this, right?
Right. And
Uh,
if I can
mhm,
just clarify
of
with
course.
that stack. So when I was putting the micrometer stuff in, what I noticed is that Vertex is still, even with normal Resteasy, Vertex is still like that really low level TCP HTTP layer. But then you would get to the Resteasy thing, and it's like the black box handoff. So there's
Right.
no optimization or anything there. You would
Yes.
hand it off into the Resteasy container, and it just
Absolutely.
does the old slow things.
Exactly. That is absolutely correct, because, like you said, like, Resteasy is like, what, 10 years old or something like that. So yeah, it was built when there was like no readily available open source, like, super
I
optimized
wish. I,
non-blocking IO layer. So yeah, it did everything blocking, because that was the spec back then, right? The JaxR spec
right.
was like, yeah, everything's every request runs on its own thread. So yeah, basically that's exactly what happens. Resteasy is good, right? But it it was kind of shoehorned into Quarkus onto Vertex in a way that did make it work, but it wasn't optimal. And of
Right.
course,
And undertow, I think is the same, similar,
um,
right? That,
Undertow actually is kind of different, because Undertow was written from the ground up, when, again, by Stewart. Um, it was based on XNIO. XNIO was a JBoss, and still
yeah.
is a JBoss IO layer, written by, again, a Quarkus contributor, David Lloyd. That was,
Okay.
it's basically something like Netty, right? So Undertow was written on that, and that was non-blocking from the start. So Undertow, we did move to Vertex, but that was basically in order to have a single unified IO layer. It wasn't because,
Right.
like, XNIO wasn't performant. It was, but since everything else moved to Netty and Vertex, we wanted everything to be on that layer.
Okay. So I didn't realize that the guts of Undertow was async like that. But
Hmm.
from a structure perspective, as I'm watching requests coming in, because I'm trying to
Hmm.
figure out where to put HTTP instrumentation
Yes,
from a
yes.
micrometer perspective, you get in so far, and it's the baton handoff to the other thing.
Yes, right. So everything's like controlled by Vertex, and yeah, like you said, with Resteasy, you just had this handover to Resteasy, and then everything else was JaxRS with no real connection to Vertex, no optimizations or anything.
So then
Uh,
what did you
mhm,
do to get Resteasy reactive to
mhm.
be different?
Because first of all, it works on the event loop, right? With regular Resteasy, the way because, like, the whole spec and everything, and the assumptions of the implementation of Resteasy was that it worked on a single thread, right? Each request actually
Right.
was serviced on a single thread, so each new request that came in had to run on its own thread. With Resteasy, we don't do that by
With
default.
Resteasy reactive.
Sorry, yeah, with Resteasy Reactive, we don't do that by default. Um, it
We're
runs
gonna have
on
to
the
call it
event loop.
rare or something.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
We don't
Resteasy
want to call it
Reactive,
rear.
we it wasn't the original name, but it was yeah, it evolved to be named that. But anyway, it works on the event loop, and everything is non-blocking. If you need blocking, then that is the only time that we will actually offload the request from the event loop to a thread pool. But even when we do that, then the IO layer is still really well integrated with Vertex, so you don't have any, like, extra memory copying and stuff like that, that you had with a regular Resteasy on on Quarkus and Vertex.
So we have a question in the chat if it's like Spring Web Flux, and I know for a fact it is not. This is still giving you REST semantics. There is some part for more reactive streamy signatures, right? You can still do mono and uni, I think, but like
Okay.
part of Resteasy Reactive, if I remember correctly, is that you get JAX-RS straight up semantics.
Yes. Okay. So that is a very, very good point, actually. So yeah, you nailed it. Basically,
yes.
you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm almost 100% certain that with Spring, the two Spring, let's say HTTP stacks, which is Spring Web and Spring Web Flux, you need to pick up front whether you want to do non-blocking I/O with Web Flux or traditional thread per request I/O, which is Spring Web, right?
You can do traditional REST. You can do a synchronous flow, but the signatures look the same, but yes, it's a different stack.
Right, exactly. So with Resteasy,
and I guess actually in this case that would be similar because they have their traditional servlet container kind of stack, and then they have this other thing. And so I think the question then to say whether or not it's super similar to Web Flux, if we were going to go for a parallel concept, is whether or not Resteasy Reactive would feel more like Mutiny, and I don't think it is.
It basically can be. Well, this is kind of gonna sound weird, but it can feel whatever you want it to feel like, basically, right? So the idea is this: there's a lot of confusion, and I've promised my colleagues that I'm going to try to write a blog post.
Okay, so wait, breathe.
Yeah.
Okay. Get all of the breath together. Okay. Ready? One sentence. What's the core of the confusion and how you'd sort it out?
The core of the confusion is that a lot of people think that whether you're reactive or not on the REST layer depends on what return types your JAX-RS method has, right? So a lot of people will tend to think that, okay, if I'm returning a uni or an RX Java flowable or whatever, or Spring Reactors, what are they called? Flux and mono, something like that. A lot of people think that, okay, if I'm returning that, I'm implicitly or explicitly reactive. Now that may or may not be true, okay? And the confusion is this, because people say, okay, you guys already had like Quarkus Resteasy Mutiny, so you had support for Mutiny as return types in regular Resteasy, so why go down this route, right? And the answer is that with Resteasy, with regular Resteasy, no matter what the return type was, you always had to run on a worker thread. So you were always doing the thread per request model. And okay, yeah, you might get your cool like Mutiny API, which you can retry and whatever, and that's all nice. But you're still relying on blocking I/O to do everything, and you're still relying on the fundamental aspect that there is one thread per request, and that is not that's not non-blocking. Okay, it might be reactive as a programming model, but it's not reactive like a reactive.
Did we name that badly? Should we have called it Resteasy non-blocking?
That probably would have yes, that probably would have been a more technically accurate name for it, but it's a weird name. Like you say Resteasy non-blocking, like no one's gonna get it right. It's just weird.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's like the one of the fundamental principles is that it runs on non-blocking I/O throughout, right? So whether you return like a blocking type, which let's say is a list of string or whatever, or whether you return a uni or multi of string, that does not affect how the underlying execution model proceeds, right?
Right.
So now
So I
there
think from the
are.
question,
Go ahead.
well, I think from the question then, just
Mm-hmm.
because I think you just answered it, another question is if Resteasy Reactive exposes mutiny types, and I think you just said, yeah, it can.
Yes, it can, and it can. It obviously can. So the awesome thing here is that, let's say like you're doing relational database access with Hibernate Reactive, right? So Hibernate Reactive is like pretty much the same idea that we did with Resteasy to move to Resteasy Reactive. Hibernate to Hibernate Reactive is pretty much the same idea, that let's take all the awesomeness of Hibernate, but build it on a non-blocking IO layer. So
Right.
you never block the same thread that you're executing the request on. So if you're going to use that and talk to the database asynchronously, then you're obviously going to return a reactive type like uni, or you could return a JDK type with like a completion stage. So with Resteasy Reactive, when you do that and you return that as a return type from the JAX-RS method, then you ensure that your entire request can run on the event loop and not pay any price of context switching to a different thread to service something that would be non-blocking anyway. So
Right.
I'm not sure that makes sense. So there's a lot of confusion here. There's a lot of jargon, and I'll try to write down a blog post that clears that. And you can ask me as many questions as you want to like try to make this clear, because I know I'm not like I know that I'm not making a terrible amount of sense probably to a lot of people.
It's okay. We're getting somewhere. I mean, I think it's making some sense. I had another question and it evaporated. I hate that. Don't know where it went. Yeah, so that was a new oh, that's what it was. I
Mhm.
believe when you turn on Resteasy Reactive also, um, Resteasy Reactive and Resteasy can't exist at the same time,
Yes, that
which
is
is the
correct.
same situation we have with the metrics extensions. You can't have both small Rye
Mhm.
metrics and micrometer on at the same time.
Mhm.
I'm fairly sure when you turn on Resteasy Reactive, the default is that we optimize for non-blocking.
Yes,
Speaking of this HTTP stuff.
yes,
So because
exactly.
we're like, if you opted in for this, you want the awesome sauceness of no blocking. And then you
Mhm.
guys added, I remember there was some question about how to do it. You added an annotation to say, oh, but this one stupid
Mhm.
method that we have is old school and it needs to be blocking.
Yes, exactly. So that's a great point. So for example, if you're using like again Hibernate but not reactive Hibernate, regular Hibernate, which means that you're using JDBC, which is a blocking API, then you can't block the event loop that you're running on to
Right.
service HTTP requests. So you need to offload that to a different thread that can block for as long as it has to. So you can continue to have to be able for Resteasy Reactive to be able to service the other HTTP requests. And there, yes, there's an annotation called blocking, which you can place either on a JAX-RS method, a JAX-RS class, or now we actually even
Right.
have it on the JAX-RS application. That I think that was something that you had mentioned a few times, right?
Well,
The
I
Jack.
just feel like people coming from other places, like they know
Mhm.
the application is where you hang stuff. Now, if I was going to have an application and put it there for the whole application, I'm not quite sure why I'm still using Resteasy Reactive at
Well,
that point.
because no, that is a good
But
point. No, that is a good point because even like in our previous show where we on our Quarkus Insights where we did Resteasy Reactive, I showed like a horrible benchmark where I just basically took the same application, ran it on Resteasy versus Resteasy Reactive with blocking, and it was still like 50% faster on Resteasy Reactive.
why? Why is that? Because in rebasing it on top of Vertex, we were able to
That's
optimize some things.
Yes, that's one thing that basically going full vertex allowed us to do a lot more, like let's say code level
Streamlining.
optimization. Yeah, streamlining of a few things. And the other thing is that it takes advantage of Quarkus's build time optimization, build time support. So let's say You don't need to do any reflection anymore with Resteasy Reactive because everything is like pre-generated and all this stuff is just regular Java code, no reflection. The whole execution path is known a priori. So with Resteasy Reactive, you have to discover a bunch of stuff and then like have all these delegates that at runtime figure out like what I'm supposed to call and what not. With Resteasy Reactive, because of Quarkus, we already know all that stuff. So we just set up like an array of these handlers and you just go through them one by one. And that is very, very fast.
Right. I remember that Stuart was like, oh, because the lookup, the way
so
you're specified for you to look up context are just ridiculous.
Exactly. So that's
I remember that.
Yeah, basically to come back to one of your initial questions is like how this got started. That's basically what Stuart did, right? So Stuart's like, yeah, we all agree there's this problem. I'm going to take care of it. So what he did is like he sat down for like a week or so, and he fleshed out the basics, the like the very fundamentals of how to get this to work in an optimized fashion. And that worked great. Like the initial prototype he did was amazing. And then when I saw that, actually him and Stefan were already collaborating on this. And then when I saw this was just before I went on PTO during the summer, and I'm like, I reached out to Stuart and I'm like, what you guys have done here is amazing. Once I get back from PTO, I want to be part of it. And he's like, yeah, sure, because there's like thousands of tests in the JAXR STCK that we're going to have to pass. Yeah. So we can use all the help we can get. And here's a question I think we have in the chat. What does it say? Let's say I have some stupid third-party library which does a blocking request. Is there a proper way to transform this to run reactively on the IO thread? That is a super common question. I'll let you take it.
Me? Yeah, I think. Well, if it's a really truly stupid library, that's where you use the blocking annotation to start with, to at least get the rest of everything. Oh, that's what the blocking method is. The annotation is for, is to make sure that can be handled. I don't know. Outside of, I think we've been looking a lot at better ways to handle context. And I feel like there might be some holy grail at some point where we're like, we can handle the context well enough that this will not be an issue, and you'll be able to use said stupid library because it will be able to keep its brains without knowing that the thread stuff happened underneath.
Yeah.
And that's,
a lot of people are saying that holy grail is going to be Loom, right?
Exactly. I was like, that's how we get there. I think there's a lot of people thinking Loom is going to be that answer. But then there's other people who are like, maybe.
I'm one of those people. I'm one of those people.
Yeah. So I think, well, see, this is what's interesting. Sidebar for Loom. I cut my teeth on ZOS.
Oh.
And for a long time with ZOS, native threads in ZOS, you want to talk about heavy? Those are heavy.
Oh, wow.
And so real heavy. And so we were going over how to do, the JVM still has lightweight threads versus heavy threads because huge. The control, because it's a control block that's like, it's ridiculous. Anyway, I can't even explain it anymore because it's like Rust bucket. I'd have to go spend time unearthing the stuff that I've happily forgotten. But I can remember because we had to go. It was WebSphere on ZOS, so it was C in C++ crossed with Java, going across the JNI boundary to pass storage back and forth, and trying to do native byte buffers, and then which thread type you were on. And there were cases where we had to do either, and then manage those. And it was nuts. And so it's like hearing about Loom with virtual threads. I'm like, didn't we do that already? Like there were problems there eventually. Like there's constraints that you have when you're not on a native thread. So it'll be interesting to see if that how that resolves.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest. I really hope that all these people that think that Loom is the magic bullet, I really hope they're right. I honestly do, because it will simplify things a lot. But my personal, let's say, forecast is that it won't be, right. That it'll be great for some things,
It'll be
but
great for something.
for a lot of
This
things,
is
I
one of
don't
those
think
things.
it'll be great. I
There's nothing new in software.
yeah,
And
pretty
so
much, yeah.
we had native threads and green threads. Do you remember they were called green
Yeah.
threads before?
Well, I was a little too young, but yeah, I know that they existed.
Thank you for calling me old. I appreciate that.
No,
That's awesome.
you were telling me about your kids earlier, and I'm like, but you're not that old. You don't look that old. How can you have kids that old?
Yeah, my kids. I waited a while to have kids.
Well, that's what I'm
So
saying. You don't look the part.
thank you. No, I'm old. It's fine. I was going through because I had to clean out my office. This is I have I don't know who still has these. Did anybody have these?
Oh wow.
I have all of
Java
them. They're
AWT.
from
Wow.
God, this is like old. This is if you ever wanted to know everything about JW or about AWT libraries, which honestly, this is so old. 1998 is this?
Wow.
I used AWT and Swing to try to represent a automated manufacturing assembly line when I was in college. So how about that? Don't ask me.
Interesting.
That was a long time ago.
Interesting.
Um,
So let's just like tie up the thread that was opened by the question that said, can that said like dumb library run on Resteasy Reactive? You said use blocking, yes, and
use
that works awesome.
blocking,
But
and then we'll have to see. Like, bring the use case. Let's open the
yeah,
issue and let's see if we can get it to work. I think it's
absolutely. But let's be clear, like there is no magic way for a library that does blocking IO for any let's say library or framework or whatever to magically make that do non-blocking IO. That can't happen. So if your library does blocking IO, then yes, you have to offload the processing
right.
to a worker thread in order to not block the event loop.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have, let's see, another question here.
Does it transfer? Does this transfer to Spring support? That is the question.
Yes,
I
I've got.
I feel bad. I owe you an apology.
Why is that?
Heartfelt. Because I was supposed to help you with the Spring stuff, and I did like 3 things, and it's like micrometer, and then I didn't come back.
Yeah, but micrometer,
Sorry.
that was a really important part of the production Quarkus story, right? So no, I mean I absolutely get it. Like things change, priorities shift, so no worries. Now to the question itself, I have been asked this before, and the answer is not yet, but I do plan to, let's say, rebase our Spring Web support from Resteasy to Resteasy Reactive fairly soon. I'm waiting for us to like flesh out all the like the bugs and whatever maybe we have. So I'm waiting for this to sink in for a while, and then I'll port um, Spring Web in Quarkus to Resteasy Reactive. So that's the plan.
Yeah, I can see how that would work, having dug in there. How are you going to handle if somebody's using Spring Web the expected blocking behavior? Would you
Oh,
have an implied?
I'm gonna make everything blocking by default, right?
Exactly. That's what I was going to say. Like, you have to do the default so it wouldn't break the
Yes,
expectation, and then
exactly,
have somebody add something to say, oh,
exactly.
but it would be interesting. Like, I don't know how you get feedback from the community, but it would be interesting to know if people would prefer a property to just say, yeah, okay, I'm good with this. Just or if they would want to have to go annotate things with code
Well,
they're
yeah,
bringing over.
that's a good point. I think we've discussed this a few times, and some people in Quarkus felt like the property is not the way to go because it because like changing a property would change semantics in the application itself, and that's probably
I
not.
get it, but I'm saying in the case of Spring Web
Mhm.
specifically, where you're bringing over,
Yeah.
a chunk of things with expected behavior, I can almost see that would be a case, right, where
Hmm.
you can just say, I want Spring would do this with properties. That's what they would do.
Right. Yeah.
You would
That's
use a
correct.
property to
Yeah.
change this.
Hmm.
So I'm curious how. I guess we'll see what happens
Yeah.
when we
We'll
get
see.
there.
I mean, once I do this, yeah, then we can talk about it. I mean, it shouldn't be a lot of work. Like it's not going to happen in one day. So yeah.
Well, Rome wasn't built in a day, so
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so I think we have some more, right? Let's
a few
see.
more.
Yeah. In
Did
the
you
past.
resolve client? Yeah, exactly. You're picking the same ones I am, so it's good.
Several exceptions related to the end of the client sessions. I'm assuming client sessions we're talking about. Are we talking about the JaxRS client, or are we talking about just some client that closed before things ended on the server side? I'm not exactly sure what the question is, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say that yes, we fixed them. Just because like Vertex already handles all this stuff for you. Like Vertex
Yeah,
is
but this may
so
have been a
battle
case where we're
hard.
adapting the JaxRS expectation of a session, right?
I don't know. Is there
Your
a session?
JaxRS container.
Oh, sorry, we have Max on the line.
There's Max.
Max, hey.
I have my client, my cigarette with me. It's good.
Hey.
Kids are the best. I'm actually, we're fortunate that we're not hearing snores from my office mate who's under the table sleeping.
A dog?
Dog. Big dog. Loves to snore loudly. So
Nice.
How are you guys doing? Sorry I couldn't come in.
we're okay. I think we've almost beaten the reactive REST topic to death. So you're just in time to talk about Jbang.
Awesome. Well, I can talk about Jbang for sure.
So I think to wrap up the reactive thing, I think I would like to see more questions and use cases come to the Quarkus dev list and into issues, because I think that would be, I think we're looking for feedback on how REST Reactive, Resteasy Reactive is working and whether or not it's meeting needs and satisfying requirements. And so I think if there's any other questions we haven't answered, I think they would be great to bring to the mailing list. Or Zulip, or wherever.
Everywhere. We're everywhere. We have a question for Max now that Max is here.
Oh, yes. You get the awesome Quarkus light in the background. Well, it's like not real, but sorry. Is that it's a nice
fake lights.
It's a nice Blender rendering. So yeah.
Pretty cool.
So yeah, I actually uploaded a model somewhere. I can share it. So yeah.
Cool.
So they can cool.
Yeah, Georgios and I are not cool enough to have green screen.
Yeah, I just know.
Background.
Well, you clean up your place. So I chose to.
That's only the part behind me. All the rest is a catastrophe.
I can only imagine. So yeah. So yeah. Okay. So you guys been through all the other 1.11 stuff?
No.
No.
We've just talked
all of
about
the other 1.11. The kid is definitely real. Yes.
The kid is real. Yes. That is good.
That's right. So we didn't go down the 1.11 release list as a list. I started picking on Georgios about the Resteasy reactive stuff because of my background working on Liberty with that HTTP stack. I just find it really cool. So I wanted to poke at it, see how it works.
All right. How about the Micrometer stuff?
The Micrometer stuff is coming along quite well. Quarkiverse is evolving, so that was fun, and we moved all of the third-party registries, the registry support out into Quarkiverse, and so now I actually have
what Quarkiverse actually is, really, really quickly.
Quarkiverse allows us to. It's a nice repository for other extensions. The best part for me, I was actually joking about this. I have not had to maintain a library or publish to Maven ever because somebody else always did it. I did all the hardcore low-level stuff, but working with Liberty, that was a proprietary internal product anyway, so our releases were completely different. And so even when I owned components, I didn't have to worry about publishing them. And so with Quarkiverse, I have a repository for, and actually in my case, it's a multi-module project because I've got a fistful of micrometer registries that I'm trying to support, and it's like magic. All the GitHub actions and stuff are set up for me, so I just have to make sure my code is right and my tests are right and the extensions behave right, and I push magic buttons, and I've got a Maven Central thingy, and I'm like, yes, because I have no idea what I'm doing. So made my life really super easy, which I appreciate. But the reason we moved those out is so that now I can actually work on getting native mode to work. Like in the case of Stackdriver, the Stackdriver authentication modules and everything are going to be easier to do using the Google Cloud Services extension. And so I got into the place where if that was still in core, I couldn't manage optional dependencies. It was starting to turn into a monster, to make sure if this dependency is there and this dependency is there, and then you can do this. And then I'm looking at how to get Stackdriver to work in native mode. And I'm like, but I need that other. It's like, this is a mess. So moving that out, it ends up being like, the Prometheus extension, for example, that's still in core, does nothing. It says, here, bring in the micrometer Prometheus registry dependency and turn on micrometer. That's what it does, is it. And so at the moment, that's what a lot of those other extensions out in Quarkiverse are doing. But it means that now I can go back and do Stackdriver, for example. I can say, okay, I need the micrometer extension, I need the Google Cloud Services extension, and now we can get things to work in native mode is the plan. Because I can bring in other libraries that are helping adjust whatever needs to be adjusted to get native mode to work.
Very cool.
Decent
Nice.
summary? Maybe.
Excellent. Excellent.
Tokyo's asking if Java 11 going to be deprecating Quarkus? Not anytime soon.
Is Max, are you only breaking up for me or Erin?
Oh
no, he's back. He's breaking up for me too. Super choppy.
Okay.
Java 11 going to deprecate Quarkus? I said the answer is no.
11? No, absolutely not.
Java 8 is semi-deprecated, but still there. But
still there.
Java
8 is gonna be there until Java dies, I think.
Nah, we'll get rid of it.
I don't know. I don't know.
It's one of the good things we hope that will happen in 2021 is that we can try.
I mean, you remember, right? My background is ZOS, which is not dead. Kix is not dead. COBOL is not dead. Java 8, I think, will never die.
but Java 8 is never going to die, but it doesn't mean that you're going to run Quarkus on Java 8.
That's completely possible. From the Quarkus perspective, yes, we may wander away from that.
You can see, like a year ago when I asked people when they were running, a lot of people were running Java 8, but most was Java 11. But now it's everyone who wants to go and do Quarkus. There seems to be Java 11, so except a few. But yeah.
Well, Quarkus is doing some nice things to make it easier to move, I think.
Yes.
Right. We're doing a lot to make it easier to move, and so then you start getting to the place where people can shift.
Yeah. So I wonder, Tokyo, I was like, why do you think Java 11 is going to be deprecated? Wondering what happens. So yeah.
Yeah, that's a good question. Like, what prompted you to think?
Well, Java 11 is a long-term, is the LTS release, right? And then we have the new, which is the new one? 13, 15, 14.
No.
No, it's out.
There has been no LTS since 11.
Are you sure?
Yes.
I don't believe you. I think there is a new one due soon or out now, and that's why the question is.
The plan supposedly was to have 17 be LTS, but there is no guarantee about that either, right?
Yeah, 17 is the sixth one.
Is it 17? Yeah. Okay.
Sorry.
Well then, why would you do what you were not? We're not going to deprecate an LTS release. Yeah, it's 17. Okay, I don't know what I was thinking. Ignore me. La la la.
He was just curious. Yeah. No, it's more about you want to get Java 8 enough people to be comfortable by not supporting Java 8. Because as long as you're in Java 8, there are you have to deal with two different layouts of the SDK, like modules and non-modules. There's a ton of APIs in the JDK we can't use before we go to 11. It's mainly, and there's some optimizations we can't benefit from. So yeah, it's interesting. Okay, But anyway, if you've talked about Resteasy and Micrometer, we can just touch on the Jbang thing. Sorry, but my daughter just figured out she's wondering why there's stuff behind me that's not the same thing on the screen. So
Magic.
So Jbang is this little project where we can run scripts in Java. Or I hate to call them scripts because you can literally run full-blown applications. But the idea is with Jbang, you can have a single file, a Java file, no Maven, no Gradle, no external anything. It's just a script. But a few months ago, we also added it can actually understand Quarkus, or rather, Quarkus understands Jbang. That's more the right way of saying it. And that means that when you run a script that has extension dependencies, we can do like the native Docker builds, and you'll hopefully soon also deploy to OpenShift. But basically, it just works, and you can do native builds and that type of stuff. Well, one of the things that's been missing there was two things. One is dev mode. So even though Jbang was small, it was still annoying you couldn't do dev mode. You can do that now. So if you run with Jbang-d quarkus.dev, your script will be in dev mode, so you can just start up and change things, and it will just run as you're used to. Right now, it only supports a single file thing, but it will do the multiple ones in the near future.
But this should allow people to replace the ridiculous instructions they have in their example. Like I've seen some examples where it's like, here, set this all up in your IDE and then create a launcher, because just launching mains is a pain in the butt, and getting all the class path stuff is difficult, right?
Yeah.
So Jbang handles all that stuff?
Yes, you can. The really nice thing is you can even go on. I just tested on my wife's computer. She's never seen Java or nothing on it. It's just a one-liner, and then you can create a Quarkus app and building on any machine, because it will install Java for you if you don't have it, and it'll even install the VS Codium, which is the open, free version of VS Code. So you have it's just nice, and all this stuff.
But you don't need VS Code to run Jbang. And seriously, I'm thinking about the projects that's how they told you to launch their client, because getting the command line for specifying the class path in the main was difficult, so they would have you do it in the IDE instead.
Yeah, no, here you just go Jbang, and then it'll read it from the file. So anyway,
how does it figure out the class path? Because that's a Java thing.
Yeah, well, in the top of the file, you use a comment, because the nice thing with comments is that they're simple to write. You don't mess them up. But I can also parse
the eye roll.
But you can also parse them without having everything compile. So a lot of people are asking me, why are you not using annotations? Why are you not using XYZ? And I'm like, because then the compiler will, I'll have to parse the Java language and ignore errors. So just put it in comments and then it's fine. So the thing is, you say / steps, and then you have a dependency, like it's using the Gradle or Maven shorthand. So like IO Quarkus /micrometer.
Okay, so you specify the GAV, right?
GAV, yes.
That's a trivia question on Twitter, right? If I say GAV, do you know what that means?
Yes, of course you do. Yeah. So you specify the coordinates and from any Maven repository, and you build. So the two things we did in 1.11 was you can do the dev mode with Jbang, but the one I think that has the biggest impact is actually that I now understand, or Jbang understands bombs, which is like what the Quarkus platform is. So before, when I had to use like Micrometer and Resteasy and Pico CLI, I had to specify all three with a specific version. And even in some cases, if the Pico CLI extension depended on, let's say, 1.12, but in the bomb it said 1.8, there were some mismatches, so it became quite tedious. So now you just put the first import, I can't even remember, IO Quarkus universal bomb, whatever the line is, version 1.11.0 final. And then the other dependencies, you just list the names and you just strip out the version and then let the bomb handle it. Cool. So that means that it becomes fairly easy to both upgrade and use it with the right version and that kind of thing. So that's it's now Jbang is enterprise ready. You can use bombs. There you go.
So what has you Jbang is your baby, right?
No, she's sitting here.
I know, that's the other baby. But I mean, speaking as someone who has babies and then I have code babies.
Jbang was a product I created about a year and a few months ago or something. Yeah. It had a year anniversary on the 30th of December of 2020. So that's what it is. Yeah.
So if it's a year old already, has it started breeding dragons? Codebases always breed dragons. So are there dragons in there yet?
A year ago, I didn't think I would have my CLI set up my IDE, so it has done some bad things, but they're good.
Well, in fairness, like the amount of repetition we all have in all of our labs and all of our instructions and all of our blog posts for how to set that stuff up.
Yeah, no,
it's purely tedious.
Yeah, this is the thing. Is if you Jbang a year ago was just about make it easy to run at JavaScript, like using Java as a scripting language. Now Jbang, you can set up a full development environment for Java and like start from 0 to nothing in like the only language that is that I claim is easy to install is JavaScript because it is in your browser. But anything else, Python or Ruby or Go or whatever, with Jbang, Java is I believe is the easiest for sure. But yeah, anyway, I just want to highlight those. If you ever want to try writing Java code in enterprise form that is just a few files instead of a whole mission of things, then try out the Jbang one.
This feels to me like the best way to get Java in the position of being equivalent with Python in a way, where people use Python to just write little utilities to do any random thing.
I'm
imaginable.
So I'll say things here, and you don't just not recording, but it is. I've done as much Python, well, almost as much Python as Java in my and I've done especially used Python for automation and tooling.
Right. That's what I'm thinking. Like every running, pick your Linux distribution. How many tools are in Python?
Yeah, exactly right. But ever since I wrote Jbang for the intention of removing some Kotlin scripts in our Quarkus build, I rarely go to Python now because I don't need to. It's like it's as fast as to do the thing there. So
yeah. I mean that's
And,
I from my perspective, in my previous jobs, I used Groovy to do what you're talking about. But yeah, I would if Jbang existed back then, I would definitely have used Jbang instead of Groovy for that kind of scripting type thing.
Yeah, it's one of those fun things. Like I've now the last year I've been trying to first in the beginning, like try to explain to people, hey, you can use Java for writing these scripts, and feel like, well, you have to set the IDE, and no, you don't have to. Just
we've been used to the enterprise Java for too long, and people just tend to forget that you could use it for anything, right?
Yeah. And I was the other day I was talking with Gavin King is doing some. He's playing with Python for he's using physics research whatever exam kind of thing, and he's using Python because that's what you use it for doing the whole processing data and that kind of thing, which is still a weakness for Java. But he was like, "Oh, I can do this, and I can show up a graph thing." And I'm like, "Oh, maybe let me try and do the same thing for Java." And I literally had it in like 30 minutes, not perfectly, but it was just like all the stuff you used to thinking that takes a long time, like the setup and finding. It's just gone. And then what's left is actually spending time on the problem. It's hard to explain. Like you have to try it. Like I still can't explain it. I'm just excited about it. So yeah.
It's good. It's good to have somebody with an enthusiasm level like mine. It's great.
No one reaches your enthusiasm level. Off the charts.
So Bruno Horta was asking something about developing Kotlin.
Oh, nice.
Oh, that's a funny one.
Yeah.
Well, I'll say this. I think Kotlin has some great ideas. I've worked on Ceylon. They've done some good things from there. And I wish that the language was more independent from a language provider. So I think technically, it's good. It's interesting. It saves some stuff. We have fairly good support for in Quarkus, and we going. I'm not sure. We should actually get I forgot his name.
Justin.
Justin. Get Justin on to talk about how far we are, because we've done a lot since the last year, and I don't even know up to. The big thing is the code routines they have makes things easier. I wish we had them in Java. I think Kotlin is a great thing to use for Quarkus. Personally, I just don't like tools that are tied to a single vendor. So that's.
I will not point out any irony in that statement at all.
Yes. Nope.
There's no irony there.
Nope. It's a closed source. Like a lot of tooling around it is not open and that kind of thing. So that's my issue with it.
So yeah, I did Kotlin my previous job. I liked it. It was cool. But I would the same thing with like Groovy or Scala. I would only ever use it at the end of like the stack, right? If I was going to write like an actual application, I would never put Kotlin or Groovy or Scala in a library and share that, because it just brings in way too many headaches to manage. Like you've seen these libraries that are with different version for Scala 2.11, 2.12, 2.13 for the same library and all that mess. And now it's starting to show up in Java libraries as well with Kotlin. So like you have OKHTTP 4, which brings in Kotlin. Like, why would I want to bundle an extra dependency, runtime dependency on Kotlin for an HTTP library? I mean, I don't get it. But anyway, yeah, Kotlin's cool. I like it. But
the whole OKHTTP and using on Kotlin is just
yeah, I don't get it. It just doesn't make sense.
I like Kotlin being present and pushing the boundaries of the language.
Yes.
Like they've pushed and changed some behavior. I like that OKHTTP and retrofit exist because they push the boundaries of what we're doing in JAX-RS and all that stuff. Like I don't remember what I was messing with, and I was like, oh, these are fun. And they're not, they're not tied to any of the usual big beast frameworks, we might say. And so I really, I like that. I feel like the Java community right now is super vibrant, doing all kinds of stuff. It's definitely like whoever said Java was going to die. It's like, are you paying attention? There's so much stuff right now.
There's so much stuff like in the language and the libraries, like APIs have gotten so much better. And Java as a platform is like continuing to get better. Like you'll have Loom in a while. You'll have like value types, and you'll have better native memory access. I mean, all this stuff in years to come is going to be great.
All good things come to those who wait, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
You can also say all good things come to an end, but I don't think this is going to end.
Don't. My part is fine. No, I think it's healthy. Like this is what I see. Like I don't see this as you have to do one or not. It's like a healthy mix.
Yeah, no, it's good.
So yeah, and that's the next one is then any thoughts on Java and Truffle? So I guess he's referring.
That's an interesting conversation. That's going to be cool. I don't know.
So so that one is actually fun because that those who don't know, so GraalVM 21, is that the one that came out?
21.0, I think. Yeah.
Came out with this. They've had it for a while. I think now it's just officially part of Graal. So they have a thing called Espresso, which is the Java running on Truffle, and Truffle is their. I'm gonna misname it, but it's their thing where they can run other languages on, like Python and Ruby and R, in a way that in a way that makes things uniform, right? So if you're a person who are looking for, hey, I want to have the same tooling, I can do the same things, and no matter what language I have, Java Truffle is your place, right? But then on the dark side is people arguing, well, then it's never gonna be as good as the real thing, and it's gonna be thing. But sometimes that's not what you need. Like you just need something close enough so you can get like in Java, you could use JavaScript libraries to do something you might not have in Java, or a Python. You can make some machine learning processing with your Java thing, because what they do in Truffle is they let the data, you can access the data more natively, or more efficiently than if you went through the native layer. So there are some, but this is the thing. I'm kind of on the. I can see the interesting stuff there, but I can also see why it could be a very big mess. But we'll see how it goes. Right? So anyway, the cool thing is they did this week was they released one with they have Python R. They did one with Java, which is funny because you're running a Java VM on a Java VM, which someone pointed out, like, doesn't matter if it's useful, it's cool. It
definitely has a cool factor on it to it. That's for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah.
Okay, so then we have another one that says,
Resteasy is blocking.
I said Resteasy is blocking, but what about non-blocking HTTP engine? So I'm not sure exactly what this is referring to. Obviously, HTTP engine is for the client, right?
I think Apache. There's an Apache client has
there is
async. You can do things with async, but it's
but that's for the client. But I'll just say that when we created our new JAX-RS client, that's all based on Vertex. So there's no additional dependency on Apache HTTP or anything. It continues to be non-blocking down to the core. You can use it if you want. If not, you could still be blocking.
Yeah. I'm not sure if Apache HTTP. SP, that's the server side, right? Apache HTTP engine.
No, I think the Mateus is referring to the client part of the MP REST client that by default now we use the Apache HTTP client as the back end for the MP REST client, but we'll change that.
Yes, you do. Made it difficult because I had to go do like instrumenting outbound HTTP clients.
No, you will not have to do that anymore because it'll be Vertex. So
I still have to chase all the places is the problem. Like right now for REST outbound, I think I had to go find. I only just added that. We have metrics going outbound now for HTTP client. That's a new thing.
Nice. Metrics everywhere.
1.11 thing. Yes.
Metrics everywhere. So Bruno followed up on Kotlin, saying with Kotlin I can reuse much code from API and using this code on Kotlin multi-platform.
Yeah, that's
I don't know. I've never used multi-platform. I mean, when I read about it, it seemed like an awesome idea, but I have no idea like how well this actually works, right?
Well, that's he's basically saying, hey, just like an argument for using JavaScript is you can use JavaScript in the client and JavaScript in your server stuff, and the same thing with Kotlin, and that's a valid point. So, yeah.
Why did you choose?
Was there any tips on speeding?
Speeding up native image. Yeah, get better hardware.
Yeah.
Did you see this? Oh my god.
Well, so the two things to make sure is if you are coming to be in the early days, like let's say 5-6 months ago, we did not put a limit on the memory usage, and therefore when you're building, it actually trashed it kept going up and then it'll go very slow. So just at least one thing you should check is that you are limiting giving the Docker container, if you're running Docker, enough space, but also you limit the memory on the invocation to the native image. Because we at the beginning, I think we had it set to be just use what you can, but you can end up being.
It's weird that helps, but it does. Like it doesn't make sense that if you constrain the space, that makes it go faster because that doesn't.
There is some logic somewhere in either the JVM or in Graal that goes like, oh, let me try and change strategy based on if I have unlimited or a box.
Right.
But they don't.
Right. I get it. It's just I don't know that people would intuitively understand that helps.
Yeah. So that's this one thing to look for. So I know we had one where we had the community client going compiled, had a lot of classes, and it took like it was like factor 5 or 10 times slower than anything else. And we
Yeah.
thought it number of classes, it has an impact, but it was more the memory limit. And then suddenly it was like, oh, it's not a big deal. But 6-7 minutes sounds well, depends on how old your MacBook is, but 6-7 minutes does sound a little long. So I'll check the memory stuff. If your Microsoft is small, it should just be some minutes.
So if I'm building on my Mac, there's a couple odd things, and I actually have an issue, or there is an issue open for this. So the storage for Docker is the key one, because with Mac, well, it depends on what you're building. If you're building on the Mac to run on the Mac, which is kind of what you need to do for your tests, that's one stage. If you're building to create a container to run elsewhere, then you have to build into a container, use the container to build the image for the container, which then gets packed in the container. And if you build that image, you can't run the tests, which means you have to, on Mac, you have to build the image twice or do the steps separately.
I'm planning to take care of that. It's just that
I know. I'm looking forward to not having to do that anymore. But that doesn't help.
Time, but yeah.
But that doesn't help the build time piece.
We also did this thing where we asked on Twitter people who asked add Quarkus insights to their task, and one of those questions also is like, how can you speed up native image building? And it's one of those things that we are looking. Well, I think we should take a look at, but right now it's more about it just because of the whole close vote assumption, it just takes time. It's like, yes, you're not instead of paying that time at runtime every time, you're now paying it once at build time. So it's a trade-off.
Yes, absolutely.
But, so there's no silver bullet.
But this will also probably get better, right? As time progresses and people, us included, look into this, then we'll be able to come up with optimizations.
Sorry.
Daddy jungle gyms are the best jungle gyms.
Yes. Because one of the things is that like GraalVM, like native image was built with some assumptions. They were built with fairly small assumptions about fairly small images. Then we started using Quarkus and became more popular, and other frameworks started using it. And I think that we're just kind of gathering experiences, because some of the algorithms in there are optimized for a certain thing. And it'll evolve over time. But it's a hard problem. So I don't want to promise anything, because I think it's a challenge at the moment. All right, we got a lot of questions.
Yeah.
Why we choose Vertex over Akka?
Well, because first of all, we have a lot of Vertex experience in Red Hat, right? We actually built this thing. It's used everywhere. It's super battle tested. It tops most of the Java benchmarks. So it's a natural choice for us. Akka.
Yeah,
I don't even know
we've
if
had some
is Akka Java only now, or is it still tied to Scala? I don't even know.
It has roots in Scala that make the APIs for it, in my opinion, a little awkward. I've done some fussing around with Akka, and I found that because of that heredity, because of where it's coming from, the APIs are awkward. Right. That's a personal preference of mine, right? I would pick Vertex over Akka every time.
Okay. We were already over the hour, but let's try and get to the rest of these real quick. Quick question for the Dev UI, which we didn't talk about, but everybody should check out Dev UI. Dev UI allows you to have, when you're doing Quarkus Dev, it gives you this kind of a development console, like a web console, where you could do a bunch of different things. You should definitely check it out. One of the things is that you can see your configuration. What Sebastian is asking here is if it's supposed to support custom config properties. I don't think it does yet, but that's definitely an enhancement. So yes, please open a ticket.
What did you talk about if you didn't talk about dev mode? I thought that would be the big thing. Dev UI.
We talked about Resteasy Reactive. We talked about that a lot.
We had a lot of questions about non-blocking and stuff like that.
Look, we see behind the curtain.
we get to
There,
see
he's a
behind the
bully. He's a
curtain.
mess just like us. Yay! Now this looks normal. We're all equally. She is the cutest cutie. Mine are bigger than that now.
She's not
They're
happy. I'll have to drop. So,
yeah,
it's 4:00. See you guys.
Okay, bye, Max.
that's the best. Mine are all long and gangly now. They can't fit on my lap anymore.
Kids, they grow. Unbelievable.
They do, like weeds. So
Last question,
somebody
I
is
think.
very insistent. They really want to know about
No,
soap.
no, actually, no. I don't think that is. I think there must be some kind of bug here, because there's a couple questions that keep on popping up. So I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure that this is like some kind of retry that's gone wrong.
Yeah.
So will there be some tooling extension regarding integration with legacy APIs such as SOAP? We do have.
We've talked about this.
Mhm.
We've talked about this because a lot of people want integration with soap, and I think if I remember right, we're going to try to do something client side ish.
I think there's. Well, there isn't. Isn't there something in Quarkiverse already? I think we have a community member who has already done a lot of work on some
Yes, but
CXF.
it's like some subset of CXF, not all of CXF.
Okay.
Is what I'm remembering. I can't remember which piece is the focus, but there is work. You're right. There is work, and it's around CXF to get SOAP support. But it was just a selection of pieces. So is it in Quarkiverse?
I think it is. Yeah.
That would be the place to take your questions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Quarkus CXF is in Quarkiverse.
Excellent.
So go there
I'll
and
look that up.
see what's there. And they've got a SOAP web service, SOAP client. They've got notes about the limitations. So yeah, it's there. Go play.
Excellent. All right.
Use cases and feedback is awesome.
All right. So I think we covered a lot of ground today.
think so.
And yeah, we're already 7 minutes over the hour. So that's cool. Without showing any code, man, this just flowed
I
great.
know it feels weird, but we talked about how things work on the inside, and sometimes
Mhm.
code is hard to show for
Yeah,
that.
absolutely.
You kind of need the other pictures too. So
Wonderful. Wonderful. So Erin, thank you so much for making this conversation so interesting. And I hope
thanks everybody for listening and asking questions. That's awesome.
That was great. Yeah, I think this is probably a record when it comes to questions. That was excellent.
Yeah, cool.
Okay, so talk to you everybody next week, I guess.
Bye.
Bye-bye.